Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Hi, this is Ali and Find Your Joy. Oh my gosh, do we have a superstar for you today? Anita Voth. Anita is an adventure traveler. She is an NLP Master Certified Practitioner. She is a financial advisor, a business consultant. She is the magic and the wonder behind everything alleyway art. And she's just, you know what? It'll be the end of a half an hour if I list off all the things that you do. Anita, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Allie.
Oh, I'm so excited. I don't even know where to start except, we were talking earlier about that there is this list of things that you have accomplished and a list of things. And I didn't even put in there that you've been involved in every book that I have ever been involved in.
That's
You have been
right.
the background that made every single time I worked with anyone, it always was you in the background.
That's
Which
right. Interesting.
it is. So there's that you do, all the background stuff around publishing and everything. And I thought, when you look at things like, adventure travel business, a financial advisor, a business consultant. I mean, there's the coaching that you do, all the NLP, the design that I can't remember the name of it right now, but you'll be telling us soon. There's all of these things, and when someone has accomplished that many things and does that many things, it sometimes at first glance, people don't see the threads, how it's all connected.
Yeah.
Tell me how it's all connected.
Well, I think first of all, anyone who's gotten to be over 50, we are a collection of so many things in our lives, right? And especially if you've moved, like you do have all these parts of your life that start accumulating that you don't have when you're in your 20s, and life is this empty map of excitement, right?
Right.
So I mean there's that, but there's also something that I actually didn't discover until probably maybe 5 to 10 years ago, and that was when I was attending a workshop where we had to write our mission statements, and there was a whole lead up to how to do that and everything. And when I got my mission statement, so I'll tell you my mission statement.
Okay.
So my mission is to change the world by empowering people to dream, create, and ultimately manifest their destiny on the earth. So, I mean, that sounds
I
like,
just got goosebumps. Chicken skin, chicken skin.
I mean, that sounds really like big and grandiose, but a mission statement isn't about what you do. It's about kind of more who you're created to be, right? And so when I match, so I didn't know that that was my mission statement until I was in my 50s. And yet when I look back and I think, okay, so just to give you a little bit of background about myself, when I was 20, I was deciding, where do I want to go to school? What do I want to do? I wasn't one of these people who was born with, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, or I'm going to be a, something.
Right.
So I basically, at that point, there was a couple things I loved. And this is key to every time I've made a big decision in my life, is when you don't know what it is that you want or what you're looking for, I always start with, what do I do know? Okay, because we always know something. And you can
Right.
ask yourself the question, well, if I did know, what would it be? Because our mind gets in the way, right? Like we
Right.
think, oh, I don't know. But if you did know, what would it be? Because that clears out all the crap
Yes. Yes.
and goes almost to your unconscious mind, right? So when you start with what you do know, so when I was 20, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew what I did know, which was I love to travel. So I had already been to France at that time for a trip, and then I went and lived in France and went to school for a year. And so I loved all things French. And I also loved all things Spanish. So languages I loved. So I'm looking through like the college catalog. I'm like, okay, well, what fits into what I do know? So there was a travel course taught at the local college that was bilingual. So you had to study half your courses in French and do everything in French and half in English. And it was studying travel. I said, tick, tick. So it ticks off two of the things that I do know, right? And so that's what I ended up doing. I went to college for 2 years and got a diploma in travel and tourism. And this is in the 90s. So at this time, adventure travel didn't really exist. So adventure travel was climbing Mount Everest, or you go lie on a beach at a resort. Those
Right.
were like the two extremes, right?
Right.
And so not knowing anything about adventure travel at the time, I knew I liked French and I knew I liked to travel. So I took this course. I ended up moving. I lived in Southern Ontario. I moved to Toronto for my first job and I started working in travel. And then a couple of years into that, I was working, well, actually only 1 year into, at that time, it feels like time is this long thing, right? But I'd only been working somewhere for a year and I realized it wasn't where I wanted to be. So I called a headhunter. So like someone who finds jobs for you. And I said, I was so full of myself at that time. Oh, I have a diploma and a year experience. I should be able to get my dream job, right? But she said, oh, there's a job as back then it was called a Girl Friday.
Oh, I
Remember that
remember.
term?
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
do
And I'm
remember.
like, I was insulted. I'm like, Girl Friday, I have all this experience. But it was at an adventure travel company. And she said, just go to the interview and see what you think. So I went, and yes, it was kind of a Girl Friday position, but I was blown away by adventure travel. So I thought, this is cool. So I took the job. And within 3 months, I was moved from Girl Friday to reservations. Within a year, I was the office manager. So, that
Wow.
just tells you sometimes we start not where we think we should, but it can lead somewhere, right?
Yes.
And so that was my entry to the world of adventure travel. Through that company, I went to Nepal, I trekked in the Himalayas, I spent a month in India, I spent a month in Morocco, mountain biking across the desert. Like I did so many cool things. I even did like bird watching in Costa Rica.
That's awesome.
So I was able to travel so much and like this whole world opened up for me of adventure travel. And I met a coworker there. And at one point we said to ourselves, I think that we could do this one aspect of that company better. And so, I was 23 at the time now, no, 24, he was 23. And again, we thought we knew everything. And, you have that young people's idea of the world.
Yeah.
And we quit one summer. We went to South America for 3 months and we traveled around and we started our own company doing adventure travel to Latin America. So then all of a sudden, here is the Spanish piece.
Oh,
Because I had said, like when I was 9, I bought a book it was called See It and Say It in Spanish. And I was teaching myself Spanish. I'm from a German background. Like where that comes from, I don't know. But my name's Anita. My mom's name is Anne. And in Spanish, Anita means little Anne. So, but they didn't name me that knowing that.
no.
So anyway, and I married a guy who was born in Colombia, South America, and spoke Spanish fluently. So all these things kind of weaved into my life. We started this company running trips to Latin America. So I was down there all the time. I was speaking Spanish. I was learning Spanish and I was doing more adventure travel, right? So that kind of, was where those things again, like start with what you know and
Right.
what you know. And often when we think back to our childhood, it's like, what did you dream of when you were a kid? Because those are the things that often life as an adult puts dampers on, right? Oh, you
Right.
can't be that.
Yes.
But if you think, what did I dream of when I was a kid?
Yeah.
So sometimes those are the things that can bring you life. So when I look at my mission statement, so I was empowering people to dream. So when we took people, this was a new brand of adventure travel. It was during the Gulf War. So
Right.
people were not traveling, but we didn't consider that to be anything to stop us. And we would bring people down to Latin America and we would do what we called grassroots travel. So it wasn't like doing something difficult physically. It was traveling on public buses, staying in local guest houses with the people. So people would go there, and when they finished their trip, our goal was that you feel like you made friends with locals, that you really got to know them, and that you got to see how people live without influencing how they live. So like a resort is like a piece of here cut out and put somewhere else.
Right.
Especially the all-inclusive, nothing wrong with them. It's just that if you want that experience, if you need just a lying on the beach holiday, it's great. But you know, I've been to resorts in different countries and I couldn't tell you which country they were in, really. Right?
Yeah.
So this was giving people an experience. Like we took them to the Amazon and we stayed in a hut that a tribe built just for our groups. And, you know, they had to eat local food. And we got there through a dugout canoe and on a public bus with pigs and chickens and, you know,
I love that.
all of that stuff. So people, you know, when they came back, even though sometimes it was uncomfortable and it wasn't like luxury or easy, they came back changed. So without knowing my mission statement, I was doing that. Right back from my travel roots.
Right. And what I really like about it was when you're saying we're just young and we had this idea of whatever. And it's like you did it before you believed all the people that told you you couldn't.
Oh yeah. And the opposition, like, I mean, we're talking 1991. I was a woman who was 24 in business. And I was making deals and people would go, oh, can we talk to your dad? And I'd be like, why? My dad owns a gas station. Like, what do you want? And they thought just couldn't believe that I was the business owner.
Right.
And so you had those kind of hurdles to overcome, but, you know, and we just did it because we believed in it. And all family and friends, they were like, oh yeah, that's Anita. She owns like a little travel agency. I'm like, no, I don't own a travel agency. Like we produce the brochures that travel agents sell. Like, but people didn't understand the difference, right?
Yes.
So you just, if you're doing what your purpose is, and it can be manifested in different ways, like you just keep going. So I mean, even after I left the travel industry, mainly because my business partner and I were having a bit of a conflict in morals and a few different things. So I decided to leave. At that point, I had 2 children. I had a 1 and a 3-year-old. And then I did the next thing that everybody thought we were crazy. And well, we sold the company. My husband was a stay-at-home dad. So that was unusual at the time too.
Yeah.
And we sold everything. We bought a Westphalia camper van and we drove to Mexico and spent a year just living in Mexico.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, so with a 1 and a 3-year-old, right? So everyone's like, oh, you're crazy. Well, we both spoke Spanish. We had everything we needed, and we were just gonna live life, right?
I think it's beautiful. What a wonderful thing to teach your kids. Like what an amazing experience and a way of being that is. It's actually one of my I do have a regret list. It's not long and I don't sit around and think about it all day.
Yeah.
But when I think about what I could have done traveling with my kids, if I had done that differently, I'm like, okay, well, I can, we do it with our grandkids, but it's just a thing that, that's awesome. I love that.
Well, it's like, even though they don't remember the specifics of the trip, I believe it forms them into who they become, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, my daughter, who was 3 at the time, I think when we finished our trip, she turned 4. So she was 3 during that year. And she'd already, even before that, she'd been to Ecuador, Guatemala, Belize, Argentina. Like she'd been already traveling, right? And my 1-year-old had been to a few of those places as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we traveled around and everyone again thought we were crazy, but we left Toronto, did that trip, ended up in BC, again, all through no full plan of our own. But we ended up in BC and starting fresh here. And my my daughter, in fact, once we arrived here, at one point we had to go back to Ontario to get some of our stuff. And she said, "Oh, on the way back, can we stop at that store in Mexico?" Because she just thought that's the way you get to Ontario is through Mexico.
Oh,
No, this time we're flying. It's gonna
yeah.
be quick.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so then again, I was at that place. I had a third child in here in BC. And then when he started kindergarten, I said, who do I want to be when I grow up? Basically now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now I'm in my 30s and I was starting fresh in a new place. And, I didn't want to start another travel company. And so again, I went back to what do I know? So I made a list of 3 things that I knew. One is that I didn't want anyone dictating to me when I had to work and when I didn't have to work, because I had 3 kids and I didn't want to have to ask permission to stay home if they're sick from school.
Right.
So I knew that. I knew that whatever I did, I wanted to lead to passive income. So meaning I didn't want to work forever. I wanted something to keep paying me even when I'm not working, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to work part-time or full-time, however I felt like. Now, so like everybody wants those things, right? But who writes them down and says that's what I'm looking for in my career? Most people think, oh yeah, nice pipe dream. Like, sure, doesn't everybody want that, right?
Right.
But I was like, no, that's what I want. So around that time, I had thrown my back out and I had to lie in bed for about 3 weeks. And what do you do when you can't move? You're like watching TV. And so I'm watching, like, I don't know, Oprah or something. And she had this guest who was called, I think it was called Chicks Laying Nest Eggs. And it was these women who started a little group to buy stocks and learn about the stock market. So I thought, oh, that would be fun. So I got some of my friends together and we started buying stocks, and none of us knew anything and we just were learning, right? So then I realized that whatever I did, I needed to learn about money, because you can be the most successful, like a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, and still not know.
If you don't know how to handle money,
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much or how little you make.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I found myself on a bus with about 30 screaming grade 5 kids on a field trip. And I'm like sitting next to another mom who I didn't know, and she turned out to be a financial advisor. And she's telling me about the company she worked for. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I ended up going to some training and kind of learning about it. And what I was amazed by with this company is they taught education about money. It wasn't like, oh, here, sign here, open an RSP or something. It was, you were educated about money long before you signed anything.
Mhm.
And so I thought that's something I could do. And I needed to learn about money. And so, not that I was bad with money or anything, like I was okay, but there's always more to learn, right?
Yes.
So
That's why some of us have lots and some of us don't.
yeah. So anyway, I started going to training there. I decided to get my licenses. I got my insurance license, my mutual fund license, and I started becoming a financial advisor. So again, this is in 2007 now.
Right.
So I wasn't even thinking about that list of things that I made later when I was doing this. But after about a year or 2 in it, I found this piece of paper I'd written this list on, and I went, okay, I can work full-time or part-time. Like basically you find your own clients, you set your own hours. I was like, at least have passive income, because you make trails and commissions from
Yeah.
sales that you do even long after the sale. And I could set my own hours, like, so I could work around my kids. And I realized that what I had found checked all those boxes on that list. Yeah.
Huh.
And then later, when I wrote my mission statement, so my mission is to change the world by empowering people to dream, create, and ultimately manifest their destiny. So as a financial advisor, I was giving people hope with their finance that, oh, I can do that. If I save this and understand, then I can do that thing that I want to do. Manifest their dream. Maybe even their dream is to go on a trip. And okay, so maybe I was able to show them a way to save in such a way that they could. So there I was, fulfilling my mission statement again before I even knew what it was, in two very different ways, like
Right.
adventure travel and finance, but they both did the same thing. Like for my mission statement, right?
Right. Well, and I can just see that. Well, if you want to travel, you need to figure out the money part, and you need to
Yeah.
sort out a plan about that. Travel, you need a plan. I mean, you
Yeah.
can go and well, it's like anything. We can sort of float through life, and we can travel without a plan, and we can do our finances without a plan.
Yeah.
I can go on a diet to lose weight, or to get healthy, or to work out, or to do it. I can do all that without a plan, and it might work
Yeah. For a while.
for a while. The chances that it will have a sustained positive result are much less without something going on. So it starts for you in adventure travel, and now you're in the financial advising.
Yeah.
Where does all the other stuff start to, like, how did you be you? What was it? Becoming Miss Daisy? No, that's Driving Miss Daisy. Oh,
Driving Miss Daisy.
forget about it. It was Becoming something was, but you're still doing it, working as a financial advisor.
Yeah.
You have
So
your own business.
one thing I learned during that is one of the things that I love, and I do love all aspects of, I love sitting down with a family and watching the light bulb go on about things that they felt that they'll never understand. So that's the teaching aspect. You know, both my parents were teachers when I was little. And then my dad got out of teaching and bought a business. So he's entrepreneurial and he's a teacher. And I think I inherited those
Yeah.
things. So I love the teaching side of the financial advising, but I also love the freedom it gave me of my time. And so it wasn't something I realized that I wanted to pursue. Like, I could have worked hard, like 50 hours a week doing that, and built a big book of business and spent all my time on that. But what I loved more about it was that it gave me time to do other things, because I loved other things too, right?
Yes.
And so one of the other things that I loved is, like, I loved entrepreneurship. So helping people or myself build a business. And so I decided to also become kind of a business administrator or helper. So there's so many people who have one-man businesses, right?
Yes.
And they don't always know all the aspects of it, or they started the business because they love a certain thing, but that doesn't mean that we are good at some of the other sides of it.
Right. Right. That's why businesses have all those positions.
Exactly. But when you're little,
Little,
you can't afford all those things.
you can't. And so you're all those
Yeah.
positions, whether you're good at it or not.
Exactly. So I got hired by a company, Wow, A Woman of Worth, which is where you wrote one of your first books.
Yes, my first two, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how I started learning about publishing. And because they published about a book a year, or sometimes 2 books in a year, but and I was kind of a support to her business.
Right.
And then that ended up leading me to working for Influence Publishing, because they were using Influence Publishing to publish their books. And so I moved on to support Influence Publishing. And again, and Influence was the publisher of your first
Yes.
full book.
Yes.
And that's where I met you. And now I'm doing some business admin work for you as well. So it's brought me to learn so many different things about different companies, because I support those companies with the administrative side, whether that's putting processes in place or plans in place, or handling more the marketing or social media, whatever it means for those different people who own that business. I do that
Right.
support work, right? So that's all, again, empowering people to dream. So I'm helping other business owners, empowering them to live their destiny by supporting, taking some of the work off their hands.
You do a lot more than that too, though. I was just, I was thinking about the things that we've done together, and I mean, everybody, well, not everybody, but those who, my story was just, I've just been healing from a brain injury, and all these things have just been kind of,
Overwhelming.
magically appearing.
Yeah.
First I started doing this, and then I started doing that. But I know for me, when you came into the picture, when that beautiful day occurred, when you became the operations manager for Alleyway Art, here's the stuff that is interesting to me. So when I'm doing something like a podcast, you do all that, everything
Mhm.
about the podcast you do,
Yeah.
from start to finish, from the very raw product to the beauty that will come out. But then also you figure out how to get guests, how to be a guest. And then you do, okay, well, I'm working on my kids' books, and you're sorting out, there's things that you're sorting out that way. And then I'm doing stuff about a retreat. You're doing all the background stuff about that. I can't even remember what else. Oh, and I have my own sound studio now. And so what's interesting to me is, because working with you, about so many different what am I trying to say? I was going to say modalities, but so many different business, like whether it's publishing or it's retreats or it's finance, or like there's so many things that you know about. And then I'm going to guess that sort of the knowledge that you have is transferable, even if you didn't have that experience, that it goes. So I just a shout out. Whoop, whoop. I just appreciate it
Thanks.
because you do, well, thank you. I mean, I was just, even Dave, my husband now, if I'm like trying to do something, he goes, "Isn't that an Anita thing?" Why are you
Well,
trying to figure that out? Wouldn't Anita do this in like 2 minutes? What, you're gonna just kill yourself for hours over? I'm like, right, I forgot Yoda.
well, it seems like everything builds, because before you, I was doing work for Julie at Influence Publishing, and Julie is dyslexic. And so she
Yeah.
always called me her left brain. Right?
Yes.
So I learned how to work with someone who was dyslexic, and kind of figure out what they need from me to support them. And you with the brain injury are not dyslexic, but you have
It's
similar
jumbled in there.
hurdles that your
Yes.
brain doesn't think in a linear way, or the way kind of the average person. And so everything I've learned from companies I've worked for before add to my, I guess, ability to support you in the best way I can.
Yeah, it's
Right?
awesome. I appreciate it so much. But it is true, because there's just, I'm gonna guess that that's part of who you are too. You're wired that way, because if you weren't wired that way, I think it would be unlikely that you would, first of all, sustain relationships with people, especially business relationships with people who, we might be great at the vision stuff, bringing it all together might not be
Yeah, there's the visionaries, and then there's action people, and we don't all have all the pieces, right? And
yeah.
yeah, I just love helping someone else's business grow, because I'm using my entrepreneurial mind for that, even though it's not my, well, it is my own business as a business consultant or
Absolutely,
administrator,
absolutely.
but I'm also helping someone else's business. And once or twice over the years, I've gone for interviews of like normal jobs, like working for the man, I call it. And I failed dismally, because I can't stop my entrepreneurial mind, and they don't want that,
No,
right? Because they want just a yes person to, okay, do this. And so I realized I can't, I've been spoiled to work for the man.
Yes.
I now have to work for myself in some capacity. Okay?
Yes, it's true. I can see what you're saying because there's many, I mean, once in a while you have someone, a business owner or probably a nonprofit executive director or something like that who loves people who are constantly thinking up ideas and doing things. But
Yeah.
people who have a way that they're doing it and that's the way they want to do it. Like, well,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to, I was just going to say like a place like, you know, the great thing about a place like McDonald's is that if I'm in Esquimalt, BC, or I'm in Los Angeles, or I'm in Rome, or I'm in, Edinburgh, Scotland, you
Yeah.
walk into a McDonald's and it's going to look the same. It's going to be the same.
You know what
Everybody's
you're getting.
You know exactly. Everybody's counting on that. Now, I will say, of course, when you go to different countries and there's different cultures, McDonald's has been wise, at least lately. They incorporate a little thing about what's there, but
Yeah.
basically, you know exactly what it is. I was going to
Yeah.
say a company like McDonald's probably doesn't want the big visionary, but maybe they do, and maybe that's how they succeeded. As long as the person stays in this box.
Yes, it's the box. It's
Yes.
definitely the box.
Yes, you gotta
Yeah, I
put them in
can't
the
do
box.
I can't do the box.
Again, no, it was that was really funny. Someone, one of my profs had written me a recommendation letter once for another program that I was about to take, and he said, I would say that Ali thinks outside the box, but I don't think she even knows there is one. She said, I don't think Ali even is aware that there is a box.
I think, and that's what I love about you.
Sort of funny, right? But I thought you're either gonna love that about me or that's gonna be like drive you crazy. Oh my gosh. Like I know that. I know
Yeah.
that about
Well, I
myself.
love that about you. So it
Thanks.
works.
Yes, it does. And you've been up to with adventure travel and businesses and manifesting, and I really appreciated your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Allie.
And for everyone listening, thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. You'll be able to get a hold of Anita. All of her contact information is going to be in the show notes. Thanks for coming out with us today, and do find your joy. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.